Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to do something a little different and a little more, heartwarming. Little something. I want to talk about a topic that's close to my heart, and who better to talk about it with than my eternal rival, my little brother, Mike. Thank you so much for hopping on the channel.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't say no to something like this, man. I mean, because this is just one, it's a good topic, it's a fun topic, and something that kind of can just flow naturally. And I mean, like, this is the kind of stuff that people want to hear. I'm assuming, we can talk about all we want about the pros and cons of games and like a little more robotic stuff, but to actually sit down and kind of have a conversation, just kind of kick back and talk about stuff that other people are gonna be nostalgic for, hopefully as well, is it's always gonna be a good time.
Right. And just one thing I'll say is I'm looking at you on the screen, but for some reason you're also to my left, but it looks like I'm looking the opposite way from you in the recording. So just let people know I am actually paying attention to him. It's just weird camera placement. But yeah, let's you and I have been playing Pokemon since we were little kids, and I did we actually did a Pokemon episode last night on the Men of Zen podcast where we meant to do only a 20-30 minute episode talking about our experiences with Pokemon. That ended up being about an hour and a half long recording. And we had so much to talk about. But when I looked it up, Pokemon Red and Blue came out in 1998 in America, and I'm pretty sure we got our games very soon afterwards. But do you remember where we got our Pokemon games and where we were at the time?
Yeah, coincidentally enough, we're from Iowa, but we were visiting the Mall of America in Minneapolis, and it's crazy that I still remember actual details. I remember where GameStop used to be. It used to be on the first floor, kind of near one of the openings to the theme park.
Yeah,
I remember going in. I can still see the wall that had the Game Boy games on it.
Oh man!
And I think it was by the Mighty Axe ride or one of those by the opening, and that's what we did. I don't know how we convinced our parents to get them, but they handed you a green Game Boy Advance. I got the reddish purple one, whatever color you want to call it,
kind of like burgundy or maroon.
Burgundy, yeah. And then we picked our games, and you picked red. Obviously, you guys can see our backgrounds behind us, and I took blue, and that is basically how it started. And again, I love a lot of things, but it's weird to remember really good details about this, when you got it, because if they were everything else we've loved, other video games, other hobbies, other things, toys in general, I don't remember where and when and what the wall looked like when we bought it and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, I remember with pretty good detail. I was 4 years old, I think we got it in 99. It would have been 99, the year after it came out.
Right. So I would have been 8 years old. You would have been 5 or
I would have been 4 going on 5. Yeah, somewhere around there. Yep.
And obviously Red and Blue have a very big meaning to us. Obviously they were the first games we got, but also Charizard's still my favorite, and Blastoise is still your favorite.
Yeah, it's still my favorite starter. There's ones that do push it. What's weirdly enough is I chose water to start, you chose fire to start, but I've been akin to a lot of the fire starters, almost in every thing, and I don't know exactly why that is. Maybe I simply like the character and creature design of fire, but for whatever reason it was Blastoise, and then it's been Typhlosion, it's been Cinderace, Emboar, Incineroar, so it's always been fire, and that's kind of looking like what I'm going to pick for Scarlet and Violet. We'll get into those games later, but it's just kind of weird how it worked out that way.
Right. Oh yeah, same thing. I think I've picked the Pokemon that I just genuinely love the designs for, and Charmander was that immediate. I loved it. I had to pick it, and of course Charizard. He's Pikachu's the mascot, but we all know Charizard's the favorite son of Pokemon because he's in everything.
I mean, yeah, but look how much they've done with Blastoise and Venusaur since. Charizard has been carried, essentially, kept up on some form of a pedestal each generation, right? Whether he's in the game or not, but he's always somewhere within the Pokemon universe at the forefront of whatever's going on. But Blastoise and Venusaur just have not been carried on the same way.
No, before we get to that, my starters, even though I picked fire, I've been picking the grass starter every single time because I've really loved the designs of them. Don't get me wrong, I really like the fire designs too, but something about the grass starters just gets me. And this generation, I don't know if I'm going to pick the grass starter, but we'll find out. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, I mean, speaking of Charizard just being carried, remember when Mega Evolution got announced in Gen 6
Yep.
and Blastoise got one, Venusaur got one, Charizard got two.
Yeah, depending on which like version of the game. I think that was Y, X, and Y, right?
Yep.
And Y, I think Y was the one I got, and it did not have the cool Charizard. It had Mega Evolution, but he wasn't discolored. And then
Right.
in X, you got the black and blue one, which was kind of like the cool thing
Right.
about that, right? It was, do you want regular Charizard Mega, or do you want the cool redesigned?
Right. You want
Mega.
Black Charizard with Fire Dragon, and that was like finally, because everyone had always thought of Charizard as a Dragon type, and he never was, but he finally got one. It is really funny. Charizard got a Gigantamax before Blastoise and Venusaur got theirs, but yeah, Charizard's kind of been like the boy of Pokemon. But fun fact, did you know that Pikachu was not originally going to be the mascot of Pokemon?
Pikachu wasn't originally going to be.
Yep.
I feel like I've heard that before, but yeah, I haven't heard anything about it for a long time.
Yeah, originally it was going to be Clefairy.
Why?
Because they thought it was a very marketable design, but of course the higher ups are like, no, it looks it looks too feminine. Like we want Pokemon to be appealing to both boys and girls, so let's choose someone else, and Pikachu eventually was chosen.
Right. I mean, like at the end of the day, it's not even so much about Clefairy leaning feminine. It's just it's kind of bland. It's just kind of this chunk thing. It's not like an actual creature. There's nothing like behind it that people can kind of get. Like with Pikachu, it was a mouse and it was electric, and you can like put those two factors together.
Right.
Well, Clefairy is just like, it's not a thing. It's not a real world thing. It's too fictitious. I don't know. It's not grounded, I think, as much as Pikachu is. And obviously they made the right choice, because I mean, can you imagine
a world where Clefairy
like if it was Clefairy, like do you think like okay, Ash starts with Clefairy, like I guess would that have been the difference? Or would Pikachu still have been Ash's Pokemon? Because even if Clefairy was the face, if Ash still starts with Pikachu, like that's going to be the face, right? They would have pivoted so quickly away from Clefairy if they didn't do. Yeah, Ash would never have started with Clefairy, and I just don't think it would have had the same impact.
Right, exactly. But yeah, it's a fun little topic about what could have been. Going back to our time, with the games early, I remember when we got those games, we did nothing else besides playing those games. We would run our Game Boys, dry and be like, "Mom, we need more batteries."
Right, and we would essentially get up in the morning before school and play it until basically she dropped us off at school. We would play it in the car, and she'd be like, "All right, you guys are at school," and we'd like fight to get through to a saving point. Like if we were in the middle of a battle and she was dropping us off, we'd be like, "Mom, I can't get out. Like I need to finish this battle, and then I need to save."
Win.
So right, and like you didn't want to get out of the car and like be immediately playing your Game Boy, because at that point like you still had people that probably would pick on you if you had your Game Boy, at school, despite us being as young as we were. Like that just wasn't what you did as a kid. So that was a lot of stress that we put on ourselves, but it was all in the name of getting as far as we can, making as much progress before we were forced to put it down essentially.
I remember, well, because we also watched the TV show religiously at the time, and whenever a new Pokemon would show up and we thought it was really cool, we're like, we need to find that Pokemon. And it was, I just can't think of how my life would have been without playing the Pokemon games and like meeting new friends on the playground and in class. I remember there were so many events where like you remember like when we were in elementary school, like we would do, like parents would do these giant sleepovers, like all the boys in class would go to someone's house and spend the night, and all of us would have our Game Boys, and the parents would make us write our names on the back of our games. That way people knew like that's our game, so there wasn't any like stealing or and it's just I hate that they made us do that, because there's those games like are worth so much money now. But like it was such a fun...
we wouldn't have known.
Oh yeah, no we also, well, before I get into that, I just loved how every boy in class played Pokemon, and it was fun just have these sleepovers where we just stayed up way too late playing games. We had our little like dongle lights you put on them. We had the link cables. to like trade and battle. You and me battled and traded all the time. It just, and I still have that poster in my man cave with Blastoise versus Charizard, the Kanto showdown. I'm looking at it right now, and that I love that because that really just makes me feel like it symbolizes you and me, where we're, you know, in our teams we always have a Charizard and a Blastoise.
Yep.
And I just, and that's something that you and me connected on, and we still connect on. And though we're about to hit, I'm over 30, and you're about to, you know, be 30 soon.
Close to
it, and we're still going strong. Like, I got a freaking Pokeball tattoo. You know, I can't see it because the green screen is blocking it. But it's like I still love it at 31 years old. I love it.
Yeah, it's something else, man. I mean, that just, without saying a lot, it says a lot about what Pokemon is and what it means to so many people. And it's such a special thing because what can compare? You know, there's a lot of IPs and there's a lot of brands and franchises that people are obsessed with, right? Yeah. And they carry with them through the years. But in terms of like Pokemon's reach and how long it's been going, I mean, there's really nothing close. And in terms of like people getting bored of it, you know, people will have their opinions. And again, I think it's a topic we'll talk about later and where it's going, but it really doesn't seem like anything's going to kill Pokemon unless Pokemon kills itself. Right. And hopefully that never happens. Hopefully they're able to keep the standard high and all that stuff. But there's just nothing like it. And I think we need to, while it lasts or during our lifetime, we need to give it the appreciation that it is.
Right. It's, you know, everyone has such a fond memory of Pokemon, even if like you're no longer into it, but people can look back when they were a kid and be like, man, that was some good times. And just thinking about it now, I get this warm feeling. Yeah. You know, just like, man, things were simpler back then. You know, remember getting Pokemon Stadium. Oh, yeah. For the N64, and like getting the little cartridges you put on the back of the controller. You put your game in there and we'd battle our Pokemon and, you know, 3D for the first time ever. It's Pokemon Snap, Hey You Pikachu, like some great games. Pokemon Puzzle League, growing up, like
the dungeon games.
Yes.
I mean, it's weird to think like when you think Pokemon, you do think the mainstream games, right? The mainline games that are all the same style, but like there were some non-mainstream games from Pokemon that also left huge impressions. Snap being one of them, like so much so that someone finally had the good idea to reboot it however many years later. I thought the Dungeon Masters were really fun as well. I haven't played one for quite a long time, but like I remember being super into that game when it was out. They don't have a lot of misses, which is again huge for a franchise and its longevity. Like they don't have a lot of misses.
There's a game that I think is a hidden gem among Pokemon called Pokemon Conquest. And it's essentially an RTS, or it's a tactics-based game where like you're a lord of a castle in feudal Japan, and you have your starter Eevee that, depending on, you know, your choices in the game, and you can choose how it evolves. And your whole goal is to mass an army of Pokemon trainers and Pokemon and conquer different castles throughout the land, and eventually fighting against a villain, Nobunaga, who has a Zekrom. And it's just it's a warring factions thing, but it's a tactics-based game too, which is so cool. I actually have that. It's worth like almost $100 now at this point as a game. It's a game on DS. But I don't think you ever played that game, but I highly recommend it. It's really fun.
I mean, it sounds fun. I like the concept of it for sure.
I'll have to let you borrow it sometime, since, you know, you typically borrow from my library of games anyway.
Always.
It's good to have a video game collector in the family. Saves you money.
It definitely comes up clutch sometimes. You are definitely correct.
But is there any other memories you can think of when, you know, you were a kid playing Pokemon, like immediately come to mind?
You know, I mean, I think you hit on a lot of them. One thing that my mind goes to, and you touched on it, was the moments where you could link cable with people. Yeah. And like battles and stuff were super cool, but back then, and obviously Gen 1, where you had some of the coolest Pokemon in the gen that were stuck behind evolving through trade, like obviously Haunter, Machoke, Kadabra, and like I've always been a big Psychic fan. I've loved the Abracadabra Alakazam line for a long time. And so when I was finally able to like evolve Kadabra into Alakazam, that was like, I just remember those being huge moments because you just felt so helpless because you needed somebody else and you needed this certain piece of technology to do it. And then like you go to a sleepover and you're like, oh my goodness, we can finally do this now. So that was just such a big deal. Yeah. And finally getting Gengar was huge because we saw Gengar in the opening scene of the very first games, right? And so he always kind of stuck in our heads, and when we were finally able to get that Pokemon as well was a big deal.
Two memories come to mind, and they're not really very extravagant memories, but like they just come to mind whenever I think of the old school games. Like I remember when we had our cabin up at Lake Delhi, and there were, of course, like we were supposed to be swimming and having fun as kids, outside, but we'd still bring our games outside. I remember one in particular where like I was sitting on the dock, my feet in the water, playing Pokemon Red, and I would look up and you were sitting on the stone steps leading down to the dock, the very top, and you're playing Blue version. And I just remember that like it was such a great. It felt nice being outside on a good day, but still playing Pokemon. And I remember when Gold and Silver came out, and I remember laying down on our trampoline outside and just playing Silver version. And I don't know, it was such a relaxing feeling, to just be outside on a beautiful day playing a handheld video game.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's merging, the best of both worlds, or at least, it's finding a place of content and tranquility, almost doing something that you really enjoy to do. And so, of course, back then you'd have people being like, you're outside, like do something. And I mean, I am doing something, and like I could be indoors without sunlight and stuff, but like this is no different than, someone outside reading a book. Like you're just staring at something, taking in information and doing whatever. This is the same stuff. Sorry, my book's electronic and it does cooler things than your book. But like, that's essentially what we were doing. So, I mean, like in hindsight, it was like, man, I should have been a kid and done more things outside. But like at the end of the day, I don't know. We were just, let's just say we were ahead of our time.
Right. Do you remember, this is a big one, the Burger King toys.
Oh yeah.
That, like where you got like
prime time.
A plastic Pokeball, and you didn't know what was inside of it until you opened it up, and there was like Cubone on a keychain, a Seadra that was a squirt gun, or a little like it squirted water people, a Rhyhorn on a wheel that you pull it back and it just flies forward. Geodude, Chunky Pikachu, Blastoise, who had like, he was also a squirt gun. Like you press a little button on his back, and I remember we got a bunch of those. And we would go outside and pretend we were Pokemon trainers. We would clip them on our belts and, just like pretend we saw wild Pokemon, and we throw our Pokeballs out and just, I remember when Dad also, I don't know how Dad did this, but he got like a box of them.
I don't really remember that. I don't remember that either. I feel like he probably was just like, hey, lady, like, I got 2 kids, they go nuts over this stuff. Like, if you just have like extra things, I will just hand you like $50 and like just give me all your stuff. I feel like he probably finagled, because that does sound like something Dad would have figured out.
Oh, he 100% would have done, because he's done it a couple times. But I remember he said like, you will get a Pokemon toy if you are good and you do things around the house. And of course we found it and we just took all of them anyway.
Terrible kids. Terrible.
We were
kids.
Awful. He did the same thing with a box of the Legend of the Blue Eyes White Dragon Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and he thought he was sneaky with hiding them in his truck, but of course I knew that's where he hid everything. So I just kind of took those cards. But yeah, we were awful kids, me especially. But Gen 1 was a big thing, and then Gen 2 comes around, and the time between Gen 1 and Gen 2 was such a weird experience, because the internet really wasn't there. If you were rich and like you got the internet, but we had a little bit of access to it, but there also weren't any dedicated sites to Pokemon like there are now. Like Cerebi.net did not exist. So like when new Pokemon popped up out of nowhere, and Fakemon, was a big thing, people were like, oh my god, this is new Pokemon. Like when Meryl was first shown off, people thought that was Pikablue.
Hmm.
Like it's Pikachu that you use a water stone on,
Hmm.
and that was the theory for a while. When we first saw Donphan in the Pokemon
First
Mewtwo Strikes
movie.
Back, yeah, we
Yep.
were like, "What the hell is that thing?"
Yeah.
And the first movie too, Mewtwo Strikes Back, like that was a banger and a half.
Still a classic.
Dude, like Pikachu Ash dying, and you know the whole like war between the real and cloned Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
That was such a. I've seen that in theaters.
Yep.
Like that was so cool. You know, something like that. One of the first experiences of seeing like an anime movie in theaters.
Yep.
Which you typically don't see a whole lot of. But yeah, like then Gen 2 came around and we were back at it again, you know, like spending all of our time playing the games. You got Cyndaquil, I got Chikorita, and then like God, just going down. I remember all of our starters. Next game, obviously Ruby and Sapphire, which were huge departures. Like full on color, you know, Game Boy Advance. I chose Trico. I still love Trico to this day. He's probably my second favorite starter. You chose Torchic.
Yep.
And I think he's your second favorite starter too.
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, like, so besides Blastoise, my next favorite is Typhlosion. I love Cyndaquil.
Oh yeah.
In that line, like, it'd be weird, like, if my rankings for my favorite starters just went in order at which the generation came out, like down the list.
True.
Right? Blastoise. I don't think that's the case, because I think Emboar is I did it because he's, I don't know, I liked him, but like he'd be so far down, he'd be probably one of the lowest. Because that was kind of in the middle of the whole like firefighting. Like every new fire starter was firefighting. It made no sense. It was like 3 straight.
Yep.
It's just kind of lame. So that redundancy kind of like drops him. But the thing is, I'm still a big fan of other non-fire starters. Where like, yes, Cyndaquil was my starter in gold, but like I love the crap out of Totodile. Like I think Feraligator's great. I loved Swampert in his line. So like I think some of those waters, despite them not being my favorite starter from that gen, would still be above some of my main starters from other gens that came out later on.
Right.
That's for sure.
It's definitely. Like I love Bulbasaur. Almost like Bulbasaur's right there. Like he's my second favorite of the original starters. You know, I also love Cyndaquil, Totodile. Mudkip's great. Chimchar is wonderful. I love the 5th generation starters too. They were great. You know, Snivy, Tepig, and Oshawott. But yeah, I mean it's still going on. 25 years, like, of Pokemon. It's been nuts. Now, did you ever hear about how the Pokemon games came to be?
Like way back, and like what led them to be
in
creation at all? No.
Well, yeah. Satoshi Tajiri, the creator of Pokemon, used to write. He made his own fake magazine called Game Freak, and eventually he wanted to create his own game instead of writing about them. And he loved bug catching as a kid, like exploring his. He lived out in the country, so he explored all the wooded areas near his house, and he just loved catching bugs, cataloging them, and he got that inspiration to make a whole new game based off that concept. And when you think about it, that's like the first game, so many bug catchers, and that's because he loves, you know, catching bugs. And he even thought about how he imagined like the link cable trading system. He imagined like the Pokemon like crawling through the link cable to get to the other side, similar to how a bug would do.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Something that he thought of like, oh, it's based off of my bug catching hobby, is now the world's highest grossing property.
Right.
Like Pokemon makes more money than anything else. It's insane. But yeah, like and now like we're coming up on the newest games. Scarlet and Violet, which, you know, some people are like, oh, this is a 25th anniversary or it's a big anniversary because Scarlet is another version of Red and Violet is another version of Blue, kind of. And
like the thing about that is a Scarlet is still just like Red, like a version of Red. Well, right. Violet is Blue and Red, like it's purple.
Right.
It's a mixture of both, but like Scarlet is its own style of Red, and then Violet is literally Blue and Red together. But
these games are looking to shake up the formula quite a bit, and I'm all for that. I am very excited to try these games out, having a more open world Pokemon game where you can really go anywhere you want. There are some problems with it. We've talked quite a bit about the problems, and I'll probably talk to you a little bit more about some problems that you may not be aware of yet. But what are your thoughts on these new games? Like, are you how excited are you, or what things about them are you excited about?
I mean, I'm excited about them at face level just because they are new installments in the game.
Right.
It's, you know, it's open world like you said, but I have reservations on like how much I'm going to lean into what my expectations, I guess, for the open world, because we've played open world games before, and it's like, okay, technically it's open world, but like it doesn't feel like it's open world. I think it's cool that they basically have 3 parallel running storylines that you can kind of traverse at your own pace. But the downside was there's no level scaling. And
yes, that's a big problem.
Bring up. Yeah, so like no level scaling, which means like, cool, you could start on one, but then if you go back, you can't go too far, because then if you go back to start one of the other 2, you're probably like super over leveled, and then you got to continue those over leveled until you're not over leveled. But then if you traverse through that further and then go back to the one you had started, then you might be over leveled for that one. So like I kind of mentioned to you earlier this week, you know, I'm replaying Brilliant Diamond and like all the other games just to kind of prepare myself. And with Brilliant Diamond, you like out level the game immediately if you face every trainer, which is like, you know, something that you kind of didn't want to do in the original games, but if you didn't, you're under leveled. Okay, so for the new ones, like I want my Pokemon now. I'm not a kid, I have time on my hands to like kind of push stuff. So like I am battling every trainer, but then you are immediately over leveled where you're like 20. I think like I'm in the mid 20s right now, and I was still fighting like 17s and 18s and stuff, which was a huge bummer. So I guess we'll just see how smooth all of that runs together. I don't know how hard it is to make it like perfect and smooth, is like what we would expect from the game. I don't know that stuff, but like having it be flat out bad would just be really, really unfortunate. I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt though. So like I do love the parallel running stuff. The map, it looks like one big round saucer, right? Like it's got all the different environments and habitats and things like that, but it's still kind of what it is. And there's like that the circle in the middle that's covered in clouds that like we don't know what it is yet before
that's the crater. That's the crater that apparently the Paradox Pokemon are in. Okay,
it's fair, but like I don't like the idea that there's like this thing in the middle that potentially creates a wall from getting to like, if you're on the top left and then getting to the bottom right, you got to go like all the way around. I'd like there to be maybe hopefully a more of a fast travel system. I don't know, like, you know, Corviknight's in this game, and I don't know if you've seen a photo of his Pokedex entry. Yeah, it says like this isn't a taxi here because there's actual like people that want to kill Corviknight, like other Pokemon that like are natural predators to Corviknight. So like you can't ride Corviknight because you might get attacked by a Pokemon who wants to eat or kill the Corviknight. So super crazy and dark. Like I love how this is still a kid's game, kind of. I think it's an adult game, but like it's a kid's game, and they just kind of fit in these little things that like, people, these Pokemon eat each other, and you're like, like they don't announce it, but like you find out when you do enough reading.
You should look through some of the old Pokedex entries for older Pokemon. There's some messed up ones. Like apparently Kadabra used to be a human, and it just woke up one day as a Kadabra.
Gross. Dark. Yeah. So like all that's good. As far as the rest of it, you know, I'm still a little, I guess, on the fence about, and it depends how they do it, but like you get your legendary right away and you just kind of like ride it. Okay, so that concept is kind of like Legends Arceus, but you have like all the riding Pokemon together in one, because that's what Miraidon and Koraidon can do. And then it's like weird, like why do you have the legendary version of Cyclizar? Well, like I think all your other students have Cyclizar. Because like if you weren't co-oping with people, obviously all your co-op partners are going to have the legendaries. But like through the game, why are you the one with the legendary when like all the other students have just Cyclizar and stuff? So again, how do they explain that, and like how do they make it kind of like smooth running and not just like a force fed like, sorry, you're the main character, you get the legendary? Like
you got that main pro tag energy, you know, you get the starter, you know. It's and then another thing is like, why the hell are the legendaries now being downgraded to transportation?
Right, and that's been kind of a joke now, is that the old legendaries where they'd run from us and you had to do all kinds of crazy stuff to get them. Obviously, like the dogs or the cats or whatever you want to call them,
Right.
from Gold and Silver. Lugia and Ho-Oh being mythical creatures that only like one special person gets to see. The same kind of thing for Black and White, whatever. Every
X
legendary
and
before.
Y, you literally had the Pokemon who embodied life and the Pokemon that embodied death. In Sinnoh, you had God and Satan, and Pokemon that controlled space and time. And then now we have these legendary Pokemon. Oh, what do? They're your bike.
Yeah, so like the thing is, they're not. It's almost like they're not legendaries. I guess that's the only way I can put it. They're not legendaries. I think that's how we have to look at these, because Cyclizar is not a legendary. Apparently, it's just a Pokemon that runs rampant there.
Yep.
And I think what's kind of funny about that is, it's like, you know, Spain based, right? Western Europe, and like they drive Vespas everywhere, like in Italy and stuff like that. So like he's pretty much just like he's a Vespa. So everybody has him. He's just convenient for transportation in the area. And then your Vespa is just like a cool Vespa when he becomes Koraidon or Miraidon. Like there's really nothing legendary about it. I know he's the cover, and it's always been the legendary on the cover, except for, you know, obviously blue and red behind us. But I just don't think he's that. There's a quartet of legendaries that we know about. They're all dark type. And then we know there's a paradox form of like Suicune and Virizion coming in the DLC. But like other than that, these really aren't legendary, and I just don't think we can look at it that way.
I'm still salty that I'm getting Scarlet, you're getting Violet, and I'm just really salty that mine doesn't even use his wheels, even though he has them. He still runs around.
I don't get it. Like I get the idea behind it, because like it's a Fred Flintstone thing. Right, like you're using your legs to make the wheels go, but you're not even doing that. At no point does he just let himself ride on his wheels. He's doing the hard work for some reason.
There's a lot of things that this game just really doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and the big thing we've been talking about mostly this week has been the Pokedex, and how the Pokedex, for just talking like new Pokemon, I haven't looked too far into like returning Pokemon, but just the new ones alone are some of the worst designs and ideas for Pokemon that I've ever seen. And I know we live in a world where there's an ice cream Pokemon, there's the jingling keys Pokemon, which fair enough, I 100% agree, those are awful designs. But like there's literally a tumbleweed that evolves into a slightly bigger tumbleweed, and its eyes are two floating little orbs in the middle of it, which just, I hate that. There's a sushi Pokemon, which is one of the, we found it today, was one of the only dragon types. There are a lot of Pokemon that just look weird, that don't look like they belong in Pokemon. They look like they come from a different game. And it just, I always run whenever a new Pokemon game comes out, I always play with brand new Pokemon so I get an idea of them, and you know which ones are good, which ones are bad. But this one is going to be very hard for me to do that, because they're all kind of awful. And the typings aren't really, there's not a whole lot of variety in typings for these new Pokemon. When I let you know that the fire types are very limited in this game, I was like, oh no, it's Generation 4 all over again.
Yeah, so the best way I explained this was, one, like you said, there are Pokemon in here that certainly look like they belong in the Pokemon world, and then some that look like they're in a completely different IP. Right. You know, whether it looks like a Digimon or a creature from like a different Nintendo game or something like that. And I don't know exactly how they keep the artists from like generation to generation. Like if Pokemon has like legacy artists that like, yeah, this guy's been doing it since Gen 1. This guy's been doing it since 2 or 3 or whatever. Like, I don't know how much they flip through artists, you know, like, are the artists who did this, how many are holdovers from the past generation and then the generation before that?
So I've always thought the main artist who's responsible for doing the first couple generations of Pokemon, he no longer works for like he's still at the company. He actually runs Game Freak, as far as I know now. But he's not involved in the actual decision making and process of designing Pokemon.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of newer talent is coming in, and a lot of these feel like designs that were thrown out originally and now are coming back. And I feel like I've seen fake Pokemon, like fake Mon, that look more realistic or more Pokemon-like than a lot of these.
Yes, I totally agree. I think there were so many fan-made illustrations of what people thought the second and third evolutions were of this Paldean, their starters.
Yeah.
And they were so much better, like
Mhm.
absolutely so much better, where they still held on to like the theme of what they were going for, the Spain influence throughout the region. But for whatever reason, they gave us again 2 more humanoid Pokemon. I don't know if it's spoilers anymore with less than a week until 5 days until the game's actually out, but like you got 2 bipeds, and Fire luckily stayed a big chonk on 4 legs,
so
which is, and it's what people like want. Like I have something. I don't really like his design too much. I think they were fine to go with his initial like concept, but just like the details and finer details that surround his structure could have been different. But whatever. But like people don't like that. And there's just a lot of weird, questionable design concepts. While you've got your generic birds and your bugs and stuff like that. Okay, cool. Like there's nothing to really say about like your basic starting area Pokemon, the birds, the dogs, the random normal ones that kind of come into the game. But then you've got evolutions that almost like have no correlation to the Pokemon that it was before. Like there's Tarantula, which is a spider that has a big ball on its back of web, and then it turns into again like a weird humanoid robot / like spindle Pokemon.
I don't think I've seen that one.
It's very weird. That's one that looks like a character from a different game. Very weird. It's a complete jump off from its first evolution. Like you would never have tied those two together unless someone told me those were the evolutions. I would not have thought those were connected.
Right.
I like the ideas of the dogs, the fairy dog, ghost dog, and dark dog. I like those. I hate the rock salt Pokemon.
Oh, he looks like he came from Mario.
He looks like he came from Minecraft.
Oh yeah, his second and third forms 100% look like they came from
like,
Minecraft.
That's what I'm talking about in terms of design and like having a bar that Pokemon's artists need to like stand with, where like all Digimon I think still look like Digimon for the most part. And I haven't kept up with Digimon, but I've seen a lot of the new stuff and it still looks the same, I guess. So when there's huge jump off points from what you could tell is most definitely a Pokemon and what is just like some random thing that you could pluck out of Pokemon and put it into any other IP, it just doesn't feel good. Just kind of going through like the list of the new Pokemon here, like Citadel and Cititan, phenomenal. They look like Pokemon. You could tell. Capsakid and the Hot Pepper Pokemon. Capsakid looks fine as like his pre-evolution. His bigger evolution kind of weirds me out. Looks like a Mario character. Then you've got the convergent styles, or like so the Wiglet and Wugtrio, Toad's cool and Toad's cruel. Fine, it is what it is. You have a literal earthworm that's steel.
Oh, I hate it.
Named Orthworm, like ore, so like metal ore.
Right.
And so like the name is fine, but again, where's the design? Where is the like almost, I don't know, like passion is the word that comes into play, where you're like, okay, I need to make this look like a Pokemon. It's you have metal / rock type worm Pokemon like Onyx, Steelix, like a serpent or something long or whatever. You have similar things to base it off of, but this, like, you stick this next to a freaking Onyx and you're like, what are you doing here? It just doesn't look the same.
Right.
Don't even get me started on Dunsparce's evolution. I think it's the most lazy thing in the entire world. It has like one extra like orb that's part of its body.
It's one extra everything. It has now an extra set of wings. It has an extra little middle orb in its body. It has an extra spike on its chin, and it's now Dunsparce. And that is the biggest freaking troll. It doesn't get any additional typing. It's still
just
a
normal and
type.
It's dumb.
Yeah, we have been wanting a Dunsparce evolution for the longest time, and people have been saying, oh, Dunsparce is going to evolve into like a normal dragon type, because like it looks like it should evolve into something big with wings.
Right. It looks like one of the dumb Pokemon that gets a really cool glow up. So like Milotic, Gyarados, etc. etc.
Yeah.
It does look like that. Some of the Titan Pokemon, I don't like the Titan Pokemon. They look, well, Cloth I think is kind of funny. He's only a rock type, but it's like, okay, you merged Krabby and Crustle. now it's just rock entirely, right?
Right.
Or you've got Bombardier, which is dark and flying. Okay, cool concept. It's a stork. I think it's fine, just as like a standalone. I never liked the non-evolution Pokemon though, like just
Right.
like Seviper and Zangoose. They don't do it for me.
Right.
Just being like standalones. And then you got Verizon. The picture I got, the name is cut off here, but like Water Psychic. I actually think that's kind of cool. But let's talk about, because you kind of brought it up, the Pokemon designs, like they are inanimate objects turned, things turned Pokemon.
Right.
Actually, before we get into that, this freaking mouse family.
Oh, can we talk about that?
Dumbest thing in the entire world. I think if there's anything in this new generation that upsets me, it is this mouse family, because it is, I don't know how else to explain it. Like the Dunsparce evolution was as lazy as it gets, and somehow this Pokemon is even more lazy.
Yeah.
Because so the first evolution, spoilers be damned, it is 2 mice holding hands. And then it evolves into a family of mice, 4 mice holding hands, called Mousehold. It's based off household, right? Like you get the gist. I think the name's clever. It's punny. But it's literal, like it's if a 6-year-old drew 2 mice and made them hold hands, and then it's just literally just 2 more of those mice added in the evolution. They did like a rat/mouse Pokemon before. It was Rattata in Gen 1, and yet for some reason that design is incredibly more. It just has a lot more effort into it. Like it fits Pokemon. It is a basic mouse/rat, and they made it look good because it's a Pokemon. Now this, like, who in their right mind would ever look at this Pokemon and be like, I gotta have it on my team? Like without it being a joke, like, that's funny. I'm gonna add this and I'm gonna make it really strong, and like I'm gonna kill people with my little mouse Pokemon, my 3 blind mice looking thing.
It looks like the blind mice from Shrek.
That's what I'm saying. But you like in the picture I'm looking at, it's the game avatar, right? I think a lot of these Pokemon could look better if we saw them drawn into the Pokemon anime, because that's kind of what you think of Pokemon when you think of a name, like name any Pokemon, you probably think of them in the anime.
Right.
And they usually look better. But with this, how do you make these mice look any better? I just don't know who was like, this is a great idea, Dave. Thank you for this Pokemon in this genre. Like I just don't get it. This was okayed several times, and no one brought up like, hey, this is kind of dumb, and a big takeoff from what we've done from generation to generation. The Keys Pokemon is just fine. Every other Pokemon that has been an inanimate object that they just slapped eyes on and said it's a Pokemon, fine. Those are so much better to me than what they did with these freaking mice.
Oh, 100%. I never got to see its evolution. I just saw the 2 mice holding hands, and I'm like, that looks dumb. I hope they're more detailed. And then I saw like the actual photo of them. I'm like, oh no, they're that bad. They're just 2 little gray mice holding hands, and it's just laziness. Like it's just bad designs that they're choosing to let through. And I understand that we're now over the 1,000 Pokemon mark. Like with this generation, we are now over 1,000 Pokemon, and I know that it must take a lot to design these, but when people can make fake Pokemon and throw them in fan-made games that look way better than something the actual Pokemon company can do, you've got to look at your designers and be like, what are you doing? Why are we paying you to make a simple, easy design like you're doing right now? Like, this doesn't look like a Pokemon. This doesn't feel like a Pokemon. Why are you here? And that's so weird, because there are some cool Pokemon in this game that honestly I love. Fido is a good boy, and I think
that's a great concept. I think they nailed it. Okay, Fido, first off, name's great. The way it looks is great, and then its evolution is Dachsbun, which is based off the actual dog type or dog breed of a Dachshund.
Yeah, he looks like he's just more baked, and then he gets his final form, and he's just like a full-on like baked bread dog, and that's clever. That's funny, you know. Oh my god, I can't remember his name, but he's the dog that's ghost type.
It's a Grievard.
Yeah, Grievard, like graveyard. But like, I love him. He's a cool design. It's like, what if we took Litwick, but made him a dog? And...
Right, like it would have been funny if like this dog and like Litwick had a synergistic relationship and a symbiotic relationship, right? Like if it's like when when a candle is like, I don't know, cut off from Greavard, it turns into a Litwick or something. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like, the connection could have been easily there.
Right.
But I don't mind that. I would have liked his evolution to be a little more different, where it wasn't just like
Just
an
a bigger
older
version.
looking, bigger version. Yeah, and it's more
Yeah.
white instead of gray. I think that one could have been so much cooler, where like Growlithe Arcanine type evolution, where it's a much bigger, more just much cooler version of the little one. But whatever. I mean, it's whatever at the end of the day. One of my favorites is the Flittle to the Espartha, the ostrich Pokemon. So like, this is cool in that it's one of the only true psychic Pokemon in the group. And like Flittle, it just looks like, I don't know, a chick or something. It kind of looks bird-like, but other than that, it looks like almost like a bath time toy for a baby. But whatever, it turns into this giant like Cleopatra themed ostrich, and I'm like, okay, cool. So like, I'll get over the first evolution because the second evolution is cool.
Now, yeah, like there's also Lechonk. I think he fits great. I love how he just turns into a bigger pig, but like no one's taken Lechonk to win the Pokemon League, but I think he's a kind of cute design.
He's Zigzagoon and Linoon. It is Bidoof and
right. He's
what I'm saying.
That,
it's just
yeah, he fits that role. I love the original, like the starters. All three of their first base forms, I think, are great. Quaxley took some time to get used to, but I think he's okay. He's not great as the other two. The other two look amazing. What other else? Some of the Pokemon they've made evolutions for, besides Dunsparce, I hate that, but Annihilate looks sick. He
really
is
cool.
Yeah, that's solid. The new Tauros evolution. Well, sorry, not Tauros evolutions, but
the
Tauros
convergent
forms.
species. Yeah.
Yeah, like those look great. Let's see here. I love Paldean Wooper. Turns into Codsire, I think is his name.
Something like that.
Yeah. He's just a bigger, chonkier Quagsire that just rolls around on his stomach. Oh, sorry,
right, and they're ground poison instead of ground water, which I think is a cool concept.
I saw a video though of Tentacruel, the new convergence Tentacruel.
So like, I think they're based off Toadstools, which I can't remember exactly what those are in like real life nature, but yeah, Toadskool and Toadscruel. I think the names are actually kind of cool. I'm not a fan of Tentacruel's design because it kind of took away what made Tentacruel cool looking.
Yeah. But have you seen the video of him like chasing the Avatar player, and it's so freaking goofy.
Oh no!
I'll have to send you that video, but it's hilarious. There's some neat ideas in this game, but unfortunately, I'd say 80% of these Pokemon are awful, and I would not normally ever choose to use them in any type of gameplay.
Right. I think again, concepts are there and good. They did a good job of making like more unique or at least lesser used type combinations. But again, like one of the Pokemon that you don't get a lot of is dragons, and I don't think there's tons of dragon Pokemon in any generation. But this one you have the pseudo legendary, which is
oh my
Ice
god,
Dragon.
I hate his first form. It looks awful.
Right, it's a little weird. It's unfortunate. We get over it to get the final product, right? But then the only other dragon Pokemon, when you talked about it, I think earlier, was the sushi Pokemon. Now it's water dragon. Okay, cool concept. Its name is Itsugiri. It is a literal piece of nigiri, which is a piece of raw fish on a bed of rice. And I just thought, like, one, that would have been fine if he had an evolution and became something.
Right.
But if my water dragon Pokemon, so like one slot in my party is going to go towards a Pokemon that is literally, I don't know the size of it, but it could be like literally 3 inches big. It could weigh a fraction of a pound. And like, that's what I send out into battle. This tiny little thing is supposed to go out. Like, how do I feel good as a trainer? Like with trying to make my team big and strong, intimidating, all that stuff. That's what I try to do with my team. I want big, intimidating Pokemon of all varying types and sizes. Well, types. I like my Pokemon big, obviously. So for this, it doesn't fit that. I'm so turned off by this Pokemon. Not so much the design and concept, but by eventually how they made the thing look size-wise and stuff like that. So,
right. Now, here's the cool thing. You can just choose the pseudo-legendary instead. Because did you know that his final form is based off Godzilla?
I mean, I can look at it and know that it's based off Godzilla. Yeah.
There's actually a move that it uses that is very similar to a move Godzilla uses in an old Japanese movie, where like he floats in the air and flies through the air with via his dragon breath, and he like has his spikes sticking out.
Oh, it's it's glaive throw or something like that.
Yeah.
And then this might take us into a different conversation, but like the animations for some of these moves are just terrible.
Oh yeah, you remember when they said like Sword and Shield wasn't going to get the rest of the national decks because they wanted to focus on new animations for all the Pokemon, and they did not do that?
They did not. It's absolute garbage. Like for Baxcalibur, I believe is what the final evolution for pseudo legendary is. His glaive throw is like, okay, so he does like a 180 like a half somersault, and then he just like floats over and then hits you. And it looks so robotic to me. It's not like he does a thing where he throws his head behind him, shoots his dragon breath, which launches him forward, and then he spins and hits you with the glaive. It is like standing still, rotate, hit, come back.
Yep. I hate it. Pokemon is the highest grossing IP in the world. It has all the money in the world, but it can't seem to hire developers who know what they're doing to design these things, or they don't give their developers enough time to do these things. And unfortunately, that is where Pokemon, I feel like, has now become more of just a corporate machine, where if it was given enough time to do everything it wanted to do, I think it could be light years more amazing than it is now. But because they have a schedule, every 3 to 4 years, they make a new anime, which means they have to have new games to come with it. They have to have trading cards that come with it, and all the plushies and all the other merchandise with it. The games start it all. The games come first, then the show, then the cards, and they have to have this thing every 3 to 4 years, mostly 3 years at this point. And Pokemon really just went from having all these really creative ideas and these interesting stories and gameplay to now just it's very basic to an extent. And it just feels like there's a lot of people that say Pokemon doesn't have a soul anymore. It just feels very hollow. And I get that. Sword and Shield, as much as I had fun with it the first time, replaying it, I see so many flaws with it and so many things they blatantly chose to omit due to cut corners. Like, they want to get the games out quicker, so they, remember in Sword and Shield all the times where like you would run into Leon and there's like some big thing happening and he says, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it. You go continue your adventure." They would show you a little bit of what was happening, but then be like, "No, you're good. Just go do your adventure. I'll handle it." And then you just be on your way. It's like, wait, am I not supposed to be a part of that? Like why? I want to be a part of that. I want to be what's over there. And it just feels like the games have become less and less. And I guess these in general. These games look awful in comparison to like some of the older art designs and styles for characters back in the day. Like when you think back of older Pokemon games and all the artwork they had and all the merchandising and promotional artwork, all the Pokemon had all these amazing colors and designs that really like were just what's the right word? It's really just bright and I don't know, like you know what I mean, right? Like these.
Yeah, it just stands out. It pops. It grabs.
Yeah, pops. That's the word I was looking for. Couldn't think of it. But these new games, all the Pokemon look so like the color schemes are also bland. Lots of browns, grays, like dark colors that just don't pop, and the landscapes all look like they had like the filter, like their saturation brought down. These just don't feel. And like all the character designs and models look so vanilla. It just doesn't feel like there's really any inspirational designs in there for characters either. And I worry that like this game is just gonna feel very vanilla in comparison. But and I know we shit on this game a lot, but I want to. Let's move over to some things that we are really excited for with these games. Like I said, there are certain Pokemon that look really cool that we're excited to use. The Paradox Pokemon for past and future look really cool. The fact that we can play online co-op, 4-player online co-op, we can explore the world together. That's so cool, in my opinion. What do you think?
That is very cool. I'm super stoked about it because at least we've got people to do that with, right?
Right.
Like if
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we'd probably be a little less, excited about it if you didn't have friends or people that were into it. So we're lucky to be doing that.
Damn, Nintendo, how dare you realize I don't have friends?
Yeah, and we just got done sort of halfway ripping the new generation, right? But at the end of the day, it's easy to zone in, accidentally zone in essentially, and think that that's all the Pokemon we get to play with.
Oh yeah,
but it's
there's
like
a lot of
no, that's
ones.
just the new. Like there's a lot returning, and one of my biggest things is we already know Tyranitar is part of the Paradox form, the future Paradox.
Yep.
But he's in the game. Like Larvitar is in the game, and hopefully that's something we can do fairly early. Like Tyranitar is one of my favorite Pokemon. If I had a top 6, he'd probably be in it. So it's really cool to know that like probably early on, I can catch a Larvitar. Well, actually, it's in your game, so you're getting Scarlet, I'm getting Violet. I will get Baggin for you, and we'll make that trade so we can do that. But like, couldn't be more stoked about it because with all the time we've had on our hands with some of these old Pokemon, I've done and restarted games, but because of like Pokemon Home and Bank, I've been able to restart a game and like essentially make my dream team or like what's best possible in that version. So like I've started games with Larvitar as my starter. Like I get one of the other starters because that's what the game does, but like Larvitar is my main Pokemon, and I go through the adventure of whatever game that is that way. So to be able to do that in a game without me having to like finagle the system and go through a bunch of third-party stuff to make it happen, I'm so glad that I could do that. So, and I think that's where they can potentially nail a lot of these games, was making certain Pokemon who maybe in past games were not available to be caught early on, make them available in some of these new generations. Like that's a huge thing, right? Like in Sword and Shield, I could never get a Larvitar or a Pupitar. There is a level 60 plus Tyranitar that's right outside the city with the Dragon Gym Leader, the 8th Gym Leader in that game.
Yep.
And I can't catch him till I'm at the end of the game already. Right. So for a game like this, for them to be able to really shake up the beginning and be like, yo, here's a Pokemon that you never used to be able to catch until you're almost done with the game. Now it's in like the second area, right after your first gym or something like that. Exactly. I think that's absolutely huge. And hopefully that's the case. But we kind of talked about like on these first run through of the new games, we want to just use the new Pokemon. And that's why we zone in on like the new generation and like really rip it apart or love it, because that's how we see ourselves playing the first round is these Pokemon only. And it's like, we don't have to do that, but it'd be really cool to. I don't think I'm going to do it entirely. I'll try to maybe have like 4 Pokemon of the new stuff, but there's no way I'm not using Tyranitar. So
100%.
Really excited about that. I'm a little on the fence about the auto battles, just in like, how much does that put us on autopilot? Pun intended again.
Yep.
Like,
you literally throw your Pokemon out and they go find a battle, and you just see like little alert saying, hey, your Pokemon beat this Pokemon and got this XP, and you're nowhere near that Pokemon.
Right. It's basically like a different version of Arceus, where you throw out your Pokemon to like hit a tree and then come back. Like that's essentially what it is. So you can pitch a Pokemon and like turn around and run away, and they'll just sit there in battle. But if you notice that like in the base for like Team Star, you basically fight all the grunts that way. There's like a ton of grunts, and instead of like having to run, hit like the old Team Rocket things where you had to fight 30 grunts to even try to make it through one room, So in this, they just kind of speed that up a little bit, which fine if you're fighting 50 plus star grunts before you get to the final boss, then cool. But what's cool is like they're just little battles. So you have one grunt come up to you and you pitch one Pokemon and they fight, and then you pitch another one to fight another grunt. So like you're able to get through it quicker. Let's just see how well that can run seamlessly in the game, and hopefully it doesn't like make you feel like you're not doing anything. Right. The whole point, I know we don't like grinding, and that was kind of what we were in the older games. I like grinding now. At some point it just feels like it's worth it. The reward's much more satisfying in the end. That's at least what I want in a Pokemon game. Yeah.
This is why I tell you need to do Nuzlocke runs, or at least attempt.
I couldn't. I'd lose my mind.
You love grinding, and this is all what it is.
But there gets to a point where grinding's done. Like I don't like Nuzlocke because if I catch a Pokemon, I'll be damned before I ever let that thing go. Yeah. And put all that time in. I cannot.
Don't let it die. Don't let it die. Just train it, make it strong. Don't let it die.
I know, but knowing me, I'd still play it like I wasn't playing a Nuzlocke, and then
Always happen.
I continually keep fighting, and then my Pokemon's at like 1 HP, and I send his ass out, and then I try to switch him out, and they're like pursuit, and then they kill you on your way
Oh yeah,
out.
we me and Jimmy just finished we're still doing a Nuzlocke run for Pokemon Radical Red, which is just a harder version of normal red, Fire Red version, but like Pokemon from Generation 1 through 8, and we just lost our run after beating Misty after losing 3 of our Pokemon there because we got absolutely, pardon my French, fucked by Lycanroc, by a Team Rocket member, because we realized at that moment all of our Pokemon were weak to rock.
Yeah, I just couldn't be hit by RNG that badly.
We killed it. We killed it, and I was down to 2 Pokemon left, and then the last Pokemon he used was a Minun, and that Minun also we had nothing but birds, so we were like, well, that's not good, and we got our shit wrecked by that too. So it's a whole new experience when you get your shit rocked by a Minun. But no, there's a lot of other really cool things about these new games. The Terra Raid battles look awesome, and like apparently the Charizard that we can get is going to be level 100. So we have to be like, they say you need to have 4 people. Like you need to have 4 of your actual friends play it and attempt to get it, because that's the only way you're going to be able to like beat it. So it'd be a dragon, flying, and fire type, because its crystallization is dragon.
Yeah, that's one thing I hope. I guess I am really excited about. We were talking about positives. I am excited about the Terra Raid battles, and if they feel much more useful and just in general productive in the game than like in Sword and Shield. Like, and kind of goes back to the over leveling. But I used to just I went through all the raid battles, the den battles in Pokemon Sword and Shield immediately. So all my Pokemon were just strong as hell because you were using all the experience candies that you get. And so that's what I do now. I'm like, there's no point in like grinding any other way. Why don't I just do this to help me like boost the Pokemon that I need to?
Right.
So I don't know. Like go ahead.
I don't know if there's EXP candies in this game, but I think the auto battling is kind of meant to be your version of that, if that makes sense. But yeah, I definitely hope their online system is way better than Sword and Shield, because do you remember how often like you click on like there's a raid nearby and you want to join it and it says it's available to join and you click on it and then it says, oh, sorry, you can't join, it's no longer available. Like, why was it there then? Like, why it's not available if it's not? Like, Pokemon, come on, like, you can do better. You have the money, you have the infrastructure, do better. But I mean, there's a lot of positives, but I feel like we hit about an hour now, and I feel like we might need to wrap this up. So, okay, two last questions, and we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
First and foremost, what is your favorite Pokemon game to replay through?
Favorite Pokemon game to replay through? Tough. I think I have to do Heart Gold because I love Gold version. And I was so pumped when that got a reboot. Like, I would take a second reboot of it as well. Like, give us another modern version of those. I feel like they got to go back and reboot like White and Black and stuff.
Oh, like yeah, that'll be next. That'll be next.
Like, it won't be another like 10 plus years, even more than that, before we get another like Heart Gold reboot or something like that, you know? So,
right.
But I love that. I love that one. This past playthrough, I worked, sort of cheated the system on the casino game, so I could buy a Dratini at Third City. I did that. So this last playthrough was one of my favorite. I love Ampharos, is one of my favorite Pokemon as well, especially in Johto. So like getting Mareep, Cyndaquil, Dratini, one of the pseudo legendaries from Gen 1, of course, and then like Zubat into Crobat is another one I always usually get if I can. So like, it's just so much fun. I get so many of my favorite Pokemon in that game for the playthrough, and the fact that it also has, obviously we know in Johto you go back to Kanto and you can get 8 more gym badges. So like, I don't know why they broke that formula. Why, like, because of course they make the regions too big, where like the first 2 you could easily fit Kanto into Johto and like have that whole experience. But can you imagine like beating Paldea and then they're like, okay, go to Galar and play through Sword and Shield? Like, it'd be way too much work with how nice and obviously, futuristic games are now. So like, it just sucks. It just sucks that way.
Now, do you know? Well, I can tell you why. That's the only game or the only generation where you actually could go back and play the older region.
There's an actual reason?
There is an actual reason. That is because while they were developing Gold and Silver, that their intention was that was going to be the last Pokemon game. Like they did not think that the game was going to blow up as much as it did. Like it did blow up, but they were like, okay, well, we'll do a sequel to it. Because technically, really think about it, it was designed as a true sequel to Red and Blue. You got a brand new region to explore, and then you got to hop back into the old region and then fight the protagonist of the first game. You know, essentially you. It was meant to be. Their idea was just it was going to be the last Pokemon game, so they wanted to go big. And after it was released, Nintendo was like, no, you ain't stopping. You ain't stopping now. You gotta make more of these. And that's why they really put everything they had into that game, because that was going to be it for them. They had no intention of making anything else. So you don't have that in any of the new games, because they know they're going to make another one in 3 years, or a enhanced version after a year or so. So that's why it's a big one. But yeah, does that make sense? You know, now
it does. It does. It makes sense why they would put so much, effort into that one. Yeah, for sure.
My favorite game to replay through is Fire Red, just because I love the simplicity of the first generation, which was, hey, in the first like 10 minutes of the game, you have your starter, you got your Pokeballs, go forth an adventure. It was just something simple, and the story's there, but it's not like in your face. It's just, I love Generation 1 Pokemon. They're simple, they're great designs, and it's just a great game for me to pick up and play again.
Exactly. Like, we both named Gen 1 and Gen 2 as like our best playthroughs. Like, I understand they're coming up on 1,000 plus Pokemon, but like, I think whenever they make new Pokemon, they almost need to like hold it up against Gen 1 and 2. Yeah, or maybe even 3. Like, I thought 3 they started to get a little weird.
Oh, I love Gen 3.
It still worked, and I love Gen 3 as well. But like, you could just tell that things started to kind of get different because they had to get creative. But like, again, it's not like Mouse Family isn't the reason. It's literally the art design, right? It's the concept is there. Just make it better. So like, take the new Pokemon you're creating, R&D. This is what you need to do: research and development for Pokemon. Take it, and then just hold it up in front of a poster of like the first 250 to 300 Pokemon, and be like, okay, does this fit? If not, what do we do to change it to make it fit? And like, that's pretty much it. That's how I think they should be asking themselves every time they make a new Pokemon. Is this Pokemon? Simple as that. Is this Pokemon, or is it a different IP? Is it Digimon? Because Digimon looks a certain way. The Mario world looks a certain way. Like all these other popular IPs. Does it look like Pokemon, or does it not? And I think, as bland and generic as that question is like existential, essentially, I think it's simpler than people think. And that would be my advice for Pokemon, is just like, make it Pokemon.
Okay. I like that. I like that. Now, last question. This is for you.
Okay.
Obviously, one day you're going to have a kid, and obviously you're going to want to show them, something that was a part of your childhood.
Yeah.
Now, if your child was in front of you, how would you explain to them what Pokemon is and what it meant to you as a kid growing up? How would you tell your child your
well, that's a tough question, because like, how old is my child, and do they understand even what I'm saying at the point? Like, are we talking like say, 5, like when we started?
Let's say like when we were kids, like our age when we started. Like, say they're 6 or 7 years old.
I don't think I would get too complicated. Like,
well, yeah, you wouldn't want to get complicated.
No,
like,
I'd just be like, hey, like, come here. Do you want to play the greatest thing of all time? Like, do you want to start playing one of the greatest inventions and creations that has ever, happened?
Right. Or like maybe your kid comes up to you like, Daddy, look, it's Pokemon, and you could be like, oh, let me tell you about Pokemon.
Here we go. The thing is, with like nieces and nephews and stuff on my wife's side of the family, like, you see them watch their own shows and stuff. Yeah. And so now it's like, well, what if I like just start playing Pokemon in front of them, and then that's the show that like makes them feel good and like makes them behave or like happy and stuff? Like, we'll do stuff that's like educational, but at the end of the day, like if cool would be if my kid gets into Pokemon and then like I don't loathe the fact that I have to sit here and watch a show that like I don't care about with my kid. They're watching like something I would care to watch. I think that's really cool. So in terms of like introducing it to them, I would simply say that I was like, I think you'd really enjoy this, and then I would just show them whatever game is out right now, or show them an old thing if I still have it. Like may not be that far into the future, so like I could just show them Scarlet and Violet, or I could show them Heart Gold. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
At the end of the day, I think it's easier said than done with this. I think it's simply like put it in front of them, and hopefully they take to it.
Okay, I like that. Okay, so now you made me think of just like one last question. All
right.
How would you sell Pokemon to someone who's never played it?
That's such a hard question right before we're done. Like, the thing is, the thing about Pokemon being as big as it is, I think right now, it's either you do or you don't. So,
Right.
like, if someone doesn't like Pokemon, I don't think you'll ever get them into Pokemon.
Right.
I think it's just that simple. Like, my wife couldn't care less about Pokemon.
Right.
And I could be like, honey, all this stuff is so cool. Like, check this out. Look at this evolution. Look at this move. Look at this thing, these concepts. These are the Pokemon right here. Like, she would never latch onto one and be like, I think I found the love of my life again after me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't think that would happen. So I think you could try, but at the end of the day, if they're not a Pokemon person by now, I don't think they will be.
Right. I remember Pokemon Go being like the closest we ever got to world peace in 2016.
Oh my gosh, what a world, dude.
Everyone was out playing Pokemon. People that I'd never ever played a Pokemon game were loving it. Like, look, honey, I caught starfish. Apparently that was a real life interaction someone had walking in the park. This elderly couple was playing the game, and he was like, honey, look, I caught starfish. And I would have laughed, but also felt really happy, like, warm feeling, like, oh, look at you, old person, playing something that you have no idea about, but you're enjoying it, and that's awesome. But yeah, I know we could probably talk way longer than we have, but I think it's a good spot for now. This is good. This feels great. Like, I'm actually like tearing up a little bit just thinking some of like the good times, the good times we had. And
just wait till we're playing Scarlet and Violet all together again, and it's like,
right.
Oh, the world is good. Like, this is one of those moments you look back on, like, I had no responsibilities, I had no drama, I had no bills to pay. We were just playing together.
Yep.
Nothing else in the world to worry about. As we'll get close to it, we'll still have bills and responsibilities. But they can't take away the fact that we can still link up together.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, it's gonna be good. I'm very excited, and of course I will be talking about the game on the channel once it actually comes out and I've gotten a chance to play it. But I'm excited. We only got 5 more days. 5 more days for it. And we got the games. You got your OLED Switch coming at you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, because I've got to make sure my brother can play the games on the best hardware.
I can't be playing with a fossil. I can't be playing the brand new Pokemon game on an absolute fossil. Yeah,
it's night and day difference. OLED screens make a night and day difference.
I cannot wait.
It's so much fun. But all right, thank you so much, little brother, for hopping on here. And sadly he doesn't have a YouTube channel, people. But
Sorry.
Mike's he'll be around again. Hell, we might even do like some online gameplay of Scarlet and Violet I can record. So that'd be some fun stuff to do. But I think we'll wrap it up on this video. If you liked what you heard, leave your leave some comments down below. What's your favorite memory of playing Pokemon? What's your favorite generation? Who's your favorite Pokemon? Just put something down there. Let's actually get a discussion going. But thank you so much, Mikey, once again for being on here, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.